Let's make sure I'm using the right microphone. Perfect. Elevation Nation. I know you guys eat 3 meals a day, maybe more if you're like me and you're snacking throughout the day. And our guest today is an absolute expert when it comes to agriculture, food, farming, nature, holistic health. We have on the one and only Rob Carney. Welcome to Elevation Nation. We are so excited to have you on the podcast to talk about your story. You're going through some changes right now, getting a job, becoming a little bit more normal like us, everyday working folk. Well, let's get into all of that, but we are so excited to have you on the podcast. Welcome to Elevation Nation, brother.
Well, Sam, I appreciate you having me, man. And yeah, these are topics I love to talk about in the world of sustainable food and farming. That was actually my bachelor's degree, was in sustainable food and farming. So I've worked on many farms since the first one, I think it was 2014, over the past few years. Have my garden that now we're recording this the first week of May. And so the gardening season is becoming in full bloom. So I'm excited to dive in, man. And I appreciate you having me.
We are so excited. I really nerd out on this topic. I was a sustainability minor, and I'm just fascinated by how far agriculture has come. The agricultural revolution is something that I think is super interesting that we can definitely talk about, and how people were able to spend that time to specialize on other parts of their life, to get, I guess, introspective for a minute. I think Parker and I talked about this on another episode, but I think the agricultural revolution is fascinating because it allowed humans to transition from just trying to survive to specializing in other traits and jobs and professions, which to me was the first shift from survival being the top thing that humans focused on to fulfillment and happiness, which I think is one of the biggest shifts that we've had in a global, as a global society, because it went from trying to live, breathe, eat, reproduce to, wow, I don't have to worry about that anymore. Maybe there are other things I can put my mind and effort to. I don't know if you've thought about that from an agricultural perspective, but I think it's interesting.
It is interesting. And like you said, it's something that has allowed us to change our priorities at the end of the day. And, just kind of go into the brief history of agriculture in modern times. In the 1940s during World War II, before World War II, most people grew some of their own food, whether it was a small garden or a large portion of their own food. Yeah. After World War II, a lot of the men went to war in a good portion of the world. And then we also found out this thing called Agent Orange, which we then turned into something called glyphosate, also known as Roundup. And it completely changed these small-scale farms into these gigantic monocultures that we're spraying chemicals on. And in the first few years, when you use those things, you're getting great yields. And then It's got this law of diminishing return, and things start to slowly decline for the rest of forever if you keep using these chemical fertilizers. And so basically, if we think about in the grand scheme of things, we're talking thousands of years of, tens of thousands of years, however long humans, I'm in the belief, we don't really know how long humans have been alive. These are all estimates. Let's call it thousands of years humans have been around. It's been less than 100 years that we've been farming on a major scale. Everything else before that was hunting, gathering, small scale agriculture. And really in the past, 70 years or so, 80 years has been this shift towards this massive change. And like you're saying, now people have the more free time, for better, for worse, to focus on other areas. This is where we can do all these different things. But a lot of people are very disconnected from the food as a result of that. So like anything, there's pros and cons. But I think that, one of my big intentions is to help people reconnect to the art, the connection with growing your own food and connection with nature.
I love that. And we're going to get into all those details. I know I gave you a brief intro, Rob, and said your credentials a bit, but this is the Elevation Nation podcast. So we want to give you the opportunity to give us a quick elevator pitch. Who are you? And why are you here to talk to us today?
Yeah, brother. Well, I'll tell you my quick story. When I was 17 years old, this is back in 2011 or so. I'm 28 years old now, if I did that math correctly. So maybe 2011, 2012. I had my second concussion, and that led me to not be able to play any sort of sports for about 5.5 months. And I was a state swimmer, played lacrosse. Sports were really my outlet. So not being able to do much for 5.5 months of having these concussive-like symptoms, lightheaded, dizziness. Someone was like, oh, have you ever done yoga? And, 11 years ago, which is crazy. It doesn't seem that long ago, but it was not popular for a 17-year-old dude to do yoga, 11 years ago.
Different times, yeah.
very different times in a short period of time. And so, I'd go into these yoga classes, people looking at me like, this is yoga, right? Like, are you in the right place? And so it was like, yeah, but it's a dark room, slow movements. And that was really what got me down this path of being more on the holistic side. That led to meditation. That led to psychology, holistic nutrition, acupuncture, massage, Reiki. You're just going down this rabbit hole, trying to figure my own health out. Because what the doctors were telling me, giving me patches and pills for these symptoms, yeah, maybe they help with some of the things, but they resulted in other things happening as well. So I was like, there's got to be a different way. So basically the past 10, 11 years has just been me going down this rabbit hole, trying to figure my own health out. And as I've started to figure some things out, now I feel I can share that with other people. So, fast forward 2018, I just moved back from LA. I was at a small startup company out there in the medical device industry, had the opportunity to travel all over the country, attend a lot of these functional medicine conferences, learn from really cool doctors. But the company I was with didn't quite start up. So I moved back to Boston with $10,000 in credit card debt. And said, hey, just like any financial advisor say, I'm going to start my own business and spend more money. So I started Whole Health Connections September of 2018, September 18th of 2018. And so that was about 3.5 years ago, a little bit more at this point, 3 3/4 or so. That my real intention was to make better health easy, because I realized, this is we make things way too complicated. And I'd worked at a juice bar before. I worked with a few different companies and saw how many crappy supplements were out there and how many phonies were out there. So I said, hey, I'm going to find the best supplements out there so people can actually have a one-stop shop. They know these are credible. They know these are high quality. There's no fillers, there's no binders, artificial colors, flavors, any of that crap. These are pure whole food supplements, not isolate supplements, but whole food supplements that we can utilize. And then from there, I said, hey, I was referring people to different practitioners that I work with. And then eventually it was, hey, maybe I can be the practitioner. So I started studying at the Czech Institute, got my level 2, 1 and 2 holistic lifestyle coach certification from the Czech Institute, got certified in Reiki and Thai massage, and kind of just blended all these different pieces together to make my own puzzle. Because, really, we can look at all the greats in all these different areas, but at the end of the day, we have to take what works and leave the rest, because everybody has their own biases, everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses, and in my view, we look at these greats and kind of pull what resonates with us so we can share that in our own blend of, what is health and wellness. So that's really what I do right now. I do my best to help people find the best supplements in the market, give them practical lifestyle tips, and teach them the basics of growing their own food.
It's incredible. It's an incredible story that was, based out of necessity when you had your concussion and trying to figure out your body. And I think, unfortunately, our society now expects, because we put a man on the moon and have modern medicine and have computers in front of us, that, oh, well, then I'm sure everything that isn't put in front of us and that we do is probably fine for my body or good enough for my body, right? Like, if it wasn't, they would have stopped it years ago, or they would have figured it out years ago. Where on the contrary, I think we are running into a plethora of, new health issues because of these new lifestyles we're living, this sedentary lifestyle, some of the artificial foods that we're putting in our bodies, how easy it is to not know where your food came from. I'll never forget when I was in 8th grade, I believe, having to watch Food Inc. for the first time and really opening my eyes to this food didn't just pop up here on a grocery store shelf from nowhere. And where did my food actually come from? And that continued some of my education, reading Michael Pollan's book, The Omnivore's Dilemma, and trying to understand a little bit better of what is going into my body. And while I definitely am at no level to that you and our dear friend Christian, who is also on the podcast, is at yet, I think embracing knowledge first so that you can make more educated decisions is part of that journey. So I'm really excited to dig into this more. Obviously, holistic health is something we're passionate about, but specifically on the agricultural side is something that I think young people really don't fully comprehend how food is made, where their food comes from, and the pros and cons of it. Many of us live in cities or suburbs where mom and dad take us to the grocery store and we pick something off the shelf. We maybe look at the nutrition label, very rarely, and then we throw it in the cart and we eat it and we don't think twice. And we wonder why we get headaches, stomach aches, anxiety. I'm not saying that's the only cause, but I'm saying our body is an incredible machine. And to think that nutrition and what we put into it has no impact is absurd. So let's get into agriculture. As you can tell, I'm already nerding out. I want to learn more from you. So let's talk about food for a minute. You obviously know a lot about the supplement game as well, but you have your own garden. You're growing your own food. It's springtime, beautiful time to get a green thumb. How are you balancing whole nutrition from the food you eat with supplements that are kind of part of modern society now?
Great question. And so I would say let's start from the ground up. Like I was saying, when we changed our
Pun intended on that, I hope, right?
Definitely. Yeah. Starting from the soil up. Well, that's what we're going to start with. Because when we look, like I was saying, with modern agriculture, as we've done these monocultures and we plant, basically monoculture, for anybody who's not familiar, it's when you have one farm that grows one thing. So that could be wheat, that could be soy, grains, the very common culprits there. Mass scale, one crop grown. But when you look at nature, when I look out my window right here, I see 5 different types of trees, a bunch of different bushes, things in the grass, dandelions, little flowers. Like, diversity is the name of nature. So in our modern agriculture, we've basically eliminated diversity and focus on one minute crop. We've really caused a lot of damage to the soil because all these plants are drawing out different nutrients, they're adding different nutrients in, they're attracting different bugs and fungi, and this whole network that works together. So essentially, our soil is not as nutritionally dense as it once was. And I remember hearing that if you were to eat 1 head of lettuce today, you would need to eat 37 heads of lettuce to get the equivalent nutrition of 1 head of lettuce just 60 years ago. We have depleted our soils that much that this is why supplementation, in my opinion, for most people is essential, because we simply cannot get the nutrition out of our food or out of our soil like we used to be able to. And this is where, we can look at a label and say, oh, lettuce has this amount of vitamin A, this amount of vitamin C. Well, does that specific lettuce have that, or is that the general amount? Because when we're looking at these labels, we think we're ticking all these boxes, but at the end of the day, was that grown in dirt, which has no nutrition, or is it grown in compost and manure and high quality soil that has fungus and bacteria that's bringing all these nutrients in? Those are 2 very different plants. Those aren't even comparable. So when we look at it from that perspective, we say, hey, how can I do better with my food first? Because I would say they're called supplements because they supplement a healthy lifestyle. They're not the answer to everything. I think there's a common misconception that it comes back like the pharmaceutical model. We want a quick fix. Oh, if I just take this pill, it's going to help with my pain. Or if I just take the supplement, it's going to help me lose weight, or whatever the intended goal is. So I say start with a healthy lifestyle first. And specifically in the topic of food, do your best to buy organic, but as organic becomes more popular, be aware of the brands, because they're now letting certain chemicals into organic foods because big pharma, big farms have a strong say in a lot of the FDA regulations. So I say local first, organic, local farms are your best, grow your own food as best you can. And so when we look at that, we start there. Now say, hey, what else am I missing? Most people are missing magnesium. 85+% of Americans are deficient to some degree of magnesium because, again, our soils have virtually no magnesium. Magnesium is a great supplement for most people. So we can then dissect, what does my lifestyle need? Are you an athlete? Okay, maybe you need more of this. Oh, do you sit a lot? Do you stare at a screen all day? Do you, whatever your lifestyle is, that's where we can start to tweak, the foods we're eating. We start to tweak the supplements we're eating, but it starts at the soil. What does the food, what did we eat, and what we ate? So it goes back, and then what did the soil eat? So you can just keep going back, peeling back the layers. So that's the long answer to your question. I could go a lot more deeper, but I want to pause there for a second.
I love it. No, it's so interesting. And I think where that first hit home for me was in reading The Omnivore's Dilemma, when he went to one of those old organic farms, and they were talking about how they moved the chickens around different parts of the farm and the pasture, and chicken shit helped the soil, which then helped the cows that were eating that grass that grew from that soil. And it was cyclical of everyone sharing all these amazing dense nutrients. So I think it's fascinating. I think, unfortunately, we turn a blind eye to a lot of this stuff as specifically Americans, but, a global society as a whole, because it's easier to not think about it. And to your point, big pharma, get the big quick fix, big farming, get something cheap, big, delicious, salty, fatty, because that's what, tastes good. And that's not necessarily what's best for our bodies. I would be so curious to hear, like, if we actually ate super healthy, how many of our health problems would go away over time? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I just think it's interesting because most Americans don't live like that. I mean, you're one of the few, Rob, I would say.
Yeah, it is very interesting. It's something I think about on a regular basis is, how many of these modern challenges could be resolved by improving our health and lifestyle. And so that is something, to answer your question specifically about food, a lot. But if we look at lifestyle in general, just about all of them, I'd say probably 95+% by incorporating lifestyle. Most people are stressed out, myself included. We live in a stressed out, go environment that's easy to get caught up in these things. And, I'm working on that, keeping my stress levels down every day because, we're bombarded by, like we're saying, toxic foods. Tap water has a lot of crap in there that we're absorbing. And I always tell people, if you're showering, get a shower filter. We're absorbing so much water through our skin, and that's tap water. There's fluoride in there, chlorine in there, pharmaceutical drugs that have been flushed down the toilet because it all gets filtered back in the same supply. And yeah, it gets cleaned with chlorine, some of these things, but you can't kill all of it. So looking at all of our lifestyle things, getting stressed down, improving the quality of our water, improving the quality of our food, moving more, getting outside, breathing fresh air. We have environmental toxins coming in with pollution. And so there's so many facets to this that it's impossible to pin it down to one thing. But I do believe that what goes into our body is arguably the most important, and that could be food, that could be water, that could be air. I think breath is a really big part, and just a little tip off the side of food for a second is that if you right now are listening to this and you're breathing out of your mouth, if you switch to breathing in and out of your nose, that's going to optimize your health just about better than anything. Just getting into that nose breathing, it's going to activate that parasympathetic mode as opposed to that's the rest and digest. The sympathetic nervous system is that fight or flight, which most of us are stuck in, shallow breathing in the chest, out of the mouth. But again, that's another tangent. So I'll get back to the food side here. I can go off on these all day. With the food, if we are thinking about, like you're saying, reading labels earlier, you were saying that. And we got into this calorie craze for a while as a culture. We got into macros a lot as a culture. First it was fat makes you fat. Cholesterol raises your cholesterol, and all those have been debunked. And then I think the current one is that carbs are bad, or all sugar is the same, or all these generalized statements that we make. So the way I look at it is, if you're eating whole foods, that's going to be your best starting place. Are you eating whole foods? Things that have one ingredient. The ingredients are a pear. Are you eating broccoli? The ingredients are broccoli. Because if you look at, let's just say, a veggie burger, which we can go into the meat versus plant-based funny game we're playing right now, but you look at a veggie burger, there's 15 ingredients in there. So yeah, maybe that's better for you than eating McDonald's, but if we look at whole foods, I think it's a great starting point. I think if we look at, listening to our body, what makes us feel best, that's going to be a good starting point. Do you feel tired after a meal? Do you feel, angry after a meal? Do you feel bloated? Whatever. Listen to your body, and that's a good starting place as well.
I think that's so spot on. Everyone's body is so different, especially when it comes to nutrition. I'll tell a quick story. So I have a buddy of mine who is a professional athlete. And when he got drafted by his team, you can imagine they had every type of doctor examine him, make sure that he's got no underlying injuries. And one of the things he was telling me that they had him do was take a blood test. And in it, they had a list of foods he can eat and foods he can't eat. And on the can't eat foods, I was like, oh, you're going to be like, ice cream and cake and, barbecue. Asparagus was on there. Like random good for you vegetables are on there. And that's why I really want to take one of those tests because I think they're fascinating. But everyone's body is different. We all have different genetics, DNAs, makeups of our bodies. So figuring out what from a actual, fruits, vegetables, foods sits well with us, is digested well in our bodies. That's, I think, the first step. And then from there, figuring out, all right, from those foods I can eat that work well with my body, where can I get those correct nutritions from? And it's a hard journey. I think hopefully modern medicine, because modern farming definitely did not help us with this, but hopefully modern medicine can help us with this a little bit by making tests like that accessible, supplements like that accessible to people that maybe, unfortunately live in food deserts. And a lot of us are in cities. Maybe some folks don't have money or the means to shop organically, and that's more difficult. So it transitions me perfectly into a topic I wanted to bring up, Rob. I live in Washington, D.C. Parker's in New York City, which is even worse. How can we be in touch with nature? You just started your garden, which, by the way, I want to hear what you're growing. But for us city slickers, how can we stay in touch with our agriculture, with our food, and maybe just feel a little bit closer to what we're putting in our mouths every day?
Well, I'm going to get into the urban gardening in just a second. I want to reflect on the blood test you said. I actually worked for a holistic nutritionist, and I made the meal plans for people for about 3.5 years after they took one of those blood tests for 132 different foods. So my job was to analyze those and make meal plans for people, which was one of the most fascinating things in the world. Like you're saying, is like it is oftentimes the things that people eat the most, because the average American eats like 12 foods on a regular basis. It's crazy. It's an absurdly small amount of food. And so basically people would come, it'd be like chicken, rice, broccoli, things that there was a phase where chicken, rice, and broccoli was the healthy meal.
Say that to every guy that was in my fraternity with Parker trying to bulk up. That's all they ate, chicken, rice, and broccoli.
And so, our bodies, like nature is diversity. So just like we are part of nature, I think we tend to think of humans that we're separate from nature, but if nature didn't exist, we wouldn't be here either. So if we think of ourselves, this is the ecosystem out there. We have an ecosystem in our body. We need diverse inputs coming in. And so oftentimes when people eat the same food, they're going to develop some level of intolerance or inflammatory response, because there's too much of one thing. Just like if you were to do chest every day at the gym, your chest is going to get sore, it's going to get inflamed, it's going to hurt. So if you're eating chicken every single day, the body that is absorbing those specific nutrients is going to start to get inflamed. It's saying, this is too much. We don't want this. It's going to give a symptom, which is inflammation, indigestion, whatever the symptom is, to say, hey, stop. But we become so disconnected, we don't listen to those. So you don't need to get a blood test. You can listen to your body's symptoms. But I also found, like you said, eggplant was something that I kind of knew I didn't really feel good or didn't feel called to eat. And then when I got that was a bright red 5, which is the highest level of what I couldn't eat. So I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's a fascinating topic to dive into. So transitioning to urban farming in a city. So if you're listening to this or watching this, I have my little indoor grow rack behind me. So basically I bought a storage shelf. I attached lights to it, and I put plants in there. So I'm growing Swiss chard right there. Sometimes I'll do microgreens. I do lettuce. I found the leafy greens do well because, they're kind of cooler weather stuff, and my house never gets above 70 degrees. So I tried peppers. I got a couple small peppers, but stick the leafy greens inside. But so you can do something like that. If you're an indoor farmer, microgreens are great. Pea shoot little microgreens are great. Radish microgreens. Get creative. If you have a sunny window, you don't even need a grow rack. Put them in a sunny window. All you need is soil, seeds, and water and light. That's it. And something is going to grow. Make sure the pot is big enough. Make sure you're watering it regularly. It's good enough. Something like just learn the language, because just like we speak English, plants speak a different language. So if they're wilting, what is that saying? If they're not growing, what is that saying? If they're, growing straight up but not going wide, what is that? And this is something that just takes interacting with the plant. Just like when you're training a dog, you're having to create a relationship with this animal so you can train it to have a common language. Sit means they sit down. You're creating this dog language with this. So we do the same things with these plants. And so people come to me and say, oh, every time I get a plant, it just dies. It's like, okay, well, what are you doing? Oh, well, I water it every day. It's like, okay, well, you're probably overwatering it. What if you tried not watering every day? Like, it's just like playing around with it. And part of learning this language of the plant is being okay with failing, quote unquote, failing. And I always tell people the first year you make a garden is going to be the worst. It's absolutely going to be the worst. Even when I came to this new place that we moved in a year ago, last year's garden was not great because I didn't have woodchucks at my old place, and half my garden got eaten one morning. I came out and the woodchuck ate half it. So that was me learning. Now I have a fence up around it. So it's always a learning process, and the soil needed more of this mineral that I didn't have over there, and all these different learning tips. So I say start where you are, use what you have. If you have a sunny window, great. Grow something you're going to eat. If you like spinach, do spinach. If you like basil, grow basil. But grow something you're actually going to eat. You can get a grow rack, get a little bigger scale. If you have a balcony, railing boxes are one of my favorite things. They hang over the side so it doesn't even take anything up in your outside balcony. I have a tiny little awning balcony that I have 3 tomato pots and I have 4 railing boxes. That's great. It doesn't need to be a ton. I'd say start small, start with what you like, and you can always expand.
I think it's great advice. Matt, my roommate, and I, we have plants. He's growing some basil right now. We got to up our plant game. I got an aloe vera plant here, which I can't really eat, but good for sunburn. So that'll be good.
You can eat aloe, actually.
Can I eat it?
You can.
All right. Rob, send me some recipes, man.
All you got to do is just take the goop. Same thing you put on your skin. You can eat. You can put it in a smoothie or eat it straight up.
Okay. There, you learn something new every day. And I want to give a quick shout out. Parker and I have 2 entrepreneurship friends, Randall and Riley, who started a company called Miravel, who they're in seed funding right now, but they have beautiful wall gardens that you can mount to your wall that are gorgeous. So if you're looking to go a little bit more, I don't know, high class, fancy artwork style, that's another option for you guys. But I think that makes sense, Rob, right? Like, just start small. If it's something that you're interested in, I think we sometimes forget what it feels like to return to our ancestral roots a bit, right? Like, we are stuck in these screens. We rarely go outside and just like walk around a forest. And I'm being a hypocrite. I don't do these things very often, but they have extreme health benefits. Whether we want to believe it or not, you're going to feel more relaxed if you spend 5 minutes digging your hands in soil and just taking a break, not looking at your phone, right? And so I think if you have to force yourself to do these things or not, they could have health benefits for you. So it's always worth trying. So I do have a question, Rob. You mentioned a few of the vegetables and plants you were growing. I want to hear the full list. And then this is just a genuine question that I have. How much of that can sustain you food-wise? Like, I eat a lot. At least I feel like I eat a shit ton of food, right? How much do you actually consume yourself, and how much are you relying on grocery stores for?
Great question. And, I live in Boston, Massachusetts, just outside, about 20 miles outside of Boston. So for me to grow my own food year-round is very difficult. I have this little grow rack behind me, like I said, and so for the most part, I grow all my own Swiss chard, which, it's subjective how much that is. But that's something I find when I go to a grocery store. Swiss chard is often wilted. It's something that's best fresh. It's not as good when you get in a grocery store. It's usually dying because it's shipped from California. So it's been at least a few days since it's been access to water. It's been touching the ground. And so I find Swiss chard is one of those things I like to grow because I love it with eggs. For anybody that's into cooking, Swiss chard and eggs is a great combo. So I grow my own chard, which I don't buy any grocery store chard. In the summers, I pretty much don't buy any lettuce. I will grow plenty of lettuce. Same thing with tomatoes. I'm not a big tomato guy. I like the cherry tomatoes better, so I do a lot of cherry tomatoes. This year I'm growing strawberries. I got a strawberry plant last year that's duplicated. Now it's duplicated to 4 different plants. So it's excited to see that. I only got 1 strawberry last year. The first year of strawberries, you usually don't get that much because you want to focus on growing. But
first year's the worst.
First year's the worst. Second's the best. And let's see. Lettuce, chard, spinach, tomatoes, peppers, broccoli I'm trying this year, cabbage, snap peas, green beans, cucumbers. I got a pretty good pretty good mix going. Mugwort's a nice herb. We have some wild black raspberries that grow on the property here. So, in terms of like a percentage, I mean, not a lot like you. I mean, I eat a lot, and my girlfriend and I live together, so it's two mouths that we're feeding. I'd say maybe 5%. The goal is to have my own homestead where I'm growing 50% or more. But there's also certain things, I like meat, and meat does really well with my body, and so that's something I don't have access to grow here. So if meat, let's say, consists of 50% of my diet, that's not something I can really grow right now with my current conditions. That's on the list of the long-term vision, but for those, I shop local. I go to a local place that has great meats, organ meats, exotic meats like elk and venison, and a lot of these things that I feel like I do well with gamey, wild meats. So yeah, I'd say in terms of percentage, maybe 5%, sometimes 10% if it's a good day. Not a ton right now, but like I said, it's something I'm working towards because the house I'm renting right now, so I can only do so much without taking over the whole half acre that we got here. So yeah, that's the starting point where I'm at, but keeping it going.
Everybody's got to start somewhere. It's funny. So we had on a guest a few weeks ago, one of our friends, Joey Lane, and we were talking about things we wanted to collect as adults. It was a very random tangent. And so like Joey collects shoes. He's a sneakerhead. And so we were talking about things we collected, and Parker was like, so Sam, what do you collect right now? Because Parker collects records and albums and stuff. I was like, I don't really collect anything. But I thought back to a vision that I've had in my mind since I was a little kid. So I don't know if you used to read Sports Illustrated for Kids, that magazine when we were little, right? Like, yeah, everybody did. They did an article on Tony Hawk, and like it was an MTV Crib style article of where Tony lived and like his compound out in Cali. And so I was reading through this thing. He's like, I got a half pipe, I got all that stuff. I was like, I don't care about that stuff. I'm on skateboard. But then he's like, and then I have, X amount of acres of just an orchard where I grow fruits and vegetables and all this food. He's like, when I'm hungry playing outside, like I just go and I grab an apple or an orange. And I don't know why that resonated with me, why I said I'm nerding out about this food conversation, because I think that would be such a cool thing to be able to just run into your backyard and grab whatever piece of food, fruit, vegetable, animal, if you need to, right, to eat. So I love that dream. I think we share a similar vision to be able to produce our own food one day. If only it was more affordable. I guess in some parts of the country we could do it.
Yeah, right? That's something I always tell people is, like I said, start where you are, use what you have. And, I always recommend people work on a farm, whether it's, you can do a program called WOOFing. It stands for Working on Organic Farms. You can also just like, when I was either sophomore or junior in college, my winter break, I went out to Sacramento, California, and worked on a farm for the course of my winter break, which is, a few weeks or whatever it was. And I remember coming out my door and grabbing an orange. It was just an orange tree right next to my bed or my window or door, whatever it is. And then I walked down, get some eggs from the chickens, and then pick some lettuce on the way back and get some oregano or whatever. I was like, man, this is the life. And that was my first, real farm experience where I was living there for an extended period of time. And that was just like you said, like being able to open my door, grab an orange, go down, grab some eggs, grab some veggies, grab some herbs, go back and cook it, and then go and start working for the day. I was like, man, this is something, I can't believe we don't do this. And most people don't ever experience that entire life to be able to grow and pick their own food. So you can volunteer on local farms too. A lot of farms, again, it's not profitable really to make an organic farm. It's a tough business. They would love volunteers. Most organic farms have volunteers. You can work on them for a day, for 3 hours, for 2 hours. Like most, if you search volunteer on organic farm in your area, you'll probably find something. So that's a great way to get your hands dirty, especially in the city. Maybe you have to drive half an hour outside to get to it, but I think you just got to get your hands dirty because, like you're saying earlier, there's benefits of nature that we can get into the whole science of it. But just get out in nature, put your phone away, be fully present, and you're going to feel better. You don't need science to tell you that. You're going to feel better.
Exactly. And I think everyone knows that. It's just the reluctance that we have to break outside our comfort zones, put our phones down, be in nature for a bit, try farming, try eating something different that we maybe haven't tried before. So Elevation Nation, Rob and I are challenging you. go outside your comfort zone when it comes to nature and agriculture and food. Take a little bit of time to try to learn more. Rob has a ton of amazing resources on his website, which we'll link to in his Instagram, so you guys can learn more as well. Rob, I have some more questions for you. We have a section called our rapid fire section. So I have some questions. First thing that comes to mind, we want to know. So I know you went to Southeast Asia. You traveled around, learned a ton from the culture over there. So my first question for you is, what is your favorite travel memory?
Oh man, this is rapid fire. That's a tough one, dude. That's a big question for a rapid fire question. Let's see. I mean, Sri Lanka is the first one that pops in my mind, and just to give the quick story on that. I was there for 2 months, which felt like 2 years. I was in Southeast Asia total for over 4 months, but it was in there working on the farm. No phone because I didn't have cell phones, so I was just fully present all day, every day, barefoot, working on a farm, connecting with people without a common language, just like, yeah, being in that full presence, full embodiment, just living life.
It's such a unique experience, I think. Again, most people don't have that. If you haven't been to Southeast Asia, some of the most friendly, gregarious people that you can meet, so welcoming to share their culture with you. Parker and I went, we didn't go to Sri Lanka, but we went to a couple countries as well, and it was a very special time. So I love that. Similar favorite travel memory for me and Parker. All right, next one. You're growing all these plants. We got Swiss chard. We got fresh strawberries, blackberries. What is the favorite go-to meal that you prepare that's used with most of the stuff in your garden? Not everything, but most.
With just veggies, it's tough to make meals. So I'd say
6 salads.
Yeah, it's going to come down to the salads, I guess.
That's fair. Listen, a summer berry salad rocks. Oof. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. All right. Last one for rapid fire. You are an expert in holistic health, wellness, nutrition, agriculture. You do coaching on the side. You have your podcast. You're really making an impact on a lot of people's lives. So I'm sure Elevation Nation is wondering, Rob, this seems like a lot, man. Like, where do I start? Where do I begin? I got a busy life. What is the one tip that you would share to Elevation Nation to just start on their holistic health journey, start in the right direction?
Breathe it out of your nose, in and out of your nose. That's it. Just if you can take as many, not a number, as many moments as you can to focus on your breath, your life is going to change. And that may sound dramatic, but like I was saying, if we are breathing in our mouth, shallowly into our chest, we're activating that stress response, that sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight, pumping adrenaline, pumping cortisol. Most people are tired and wired all the time. They can't figure out why they can't sleep, but then they're exhausted. It's just like, because we're in this sympathetic go, go, go mode. If you can switch to slow, deep, intentional nasal breathing, that's going to compound. Imagine, let's just say, right now you take one intentional breath a day. Okay, now you're aware of it. You did 1. Okay, now tomorrow, maybe you do 2. Okay, now you're even more. Maybe you do 4 the next day. And then maybe you take 10 breaths all at once that are intentional. Then you do it 3 times a day. You got 30 intentional breaths a day of the, I think it's 18,000 breaths we take a day. If you can start increasing that percentage of intentional breaths, you're going to be less reactive. You're going to be more present, more responsible, able to respond as opposed to reactive. And you will be more present, more grounded. And I'm saying this to myself because I need to hear this as well. I'm not a monk. I'm not listening to every single breath. But the more we can be present with our breath, so many other pieces will fall into place. Relationships will get better. You become a better listener, more patient, more intentional with your words. The list goes on and on. But one tip, focus on the breath.
That's so simple that no one has an excuse not to do it. Elevation Nation, breathe out your nose. I was actually watching, it must have been on like TikTok or something, Rob, I don't know if you've seen it. Like all these people are taping their mouths shut before they go to bed now so they breathe out their nose. I'm like, all right, learned that from Rob. Thank you.
And it's free. Breathing's free. Again, we can talk about supplements. We can talk about food. We can talk about all these things. And at the end of the day, you can go weeks without food. You can go days without water, but you can only go minutes without breathing. The breath is food. It's life force energy. You can call it chi or prana or all these different things we hear. you can last on average 3 minutes without breathing and you're done. It is the most vitally important resource we have, and most of us are far from optimized in our breathing patterns. We're so focused on exercise, we're so focused on nutrition, all these things which are all important. But imagine how much improved your breathing will be if you're breathing properly in your sports. You know, you see, if you watch, I'm a big basketball fan. If you watch people shooting free throws, what's the first thing they do?
Deep breath.
Deep breath. They slow it down, they calm their nerves, and then they shoot. Because they know, they're taught, they're trained to calm their nervous system down before they take the shot. And same thing with weightlifting. If you're ever weightlifting, what do? You don't hold your breath. You're exhaling typically as you're, bench press something about pushing the weight away. You're usually exhaling. Take a breath, exhale again. Like if we can work our breath in with our movement, that's what Tai Chi is basically, is moving and breathing. We're coordinating the movements with the breaths. And if we can get more aware of our breath on a regular basis, man, things are going to start clicking.
I love that. I think Elevation Nation, we're all going to do it right now. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out. Literally doing that one time just makes me feel better. One time.
Way better.
It's great. It's crazy. So I like that. Rob says it's free. I say it's free. You got no excuses now. Take a deep breath. Tell someone else to take a deep breath. Man, what an amazing place our world would probably be if everyone took a deep breath through their nose and chilled out. Man, I love it. All right. That was rapid fire. Rob, I want to be conscious of your time. You're generous to spend an evening talking to me without Parker here. If Elevation Nation couldn't notice, unfortunately, he couldn't make it today. But so Rob stuck with me for a whole 45 minutes, which sucks. All right. Last question. We've been starting this new segment that we absolutely love at Elevation Nation that's called our mental motto. So we're obsessed with your mindset. We think that the mindset you have, your outlook on life, truly shapes who you are. And so every guest we've had on, we ask them, what is their mental motto? What is that phrase that they live by, that they personify for their life? And we haven't had anyone that said the same thing twice. So Rob, what is your mental motto?
Every time you say Elevation Nation, I just love the name more and more. It really rolls off the tongue. So nice job on that one. But my mental model, and this is something I tell, whether it's with my superfoods team, if I tell it to a client, say it to myself, it's patience, persistence, consistency. Because it's so easy in this world of instant gratification to not be patient, to be wanting that, I want it now. To not be consistent because we can do a million different things at once. People used to have the same jobs for their whole career. Now it's easy to jump around, which is cool. I've jumped around and it served me well in many regards, but I think there's a lot of benefit to consistency. The whole jack of all trades, master of none. And then persistence. Like I said, it's very easy to give up. It's easier to give up than it is to keep going when things get tough. So if we're patient, persistent, and consistent, regardless, whatever field we're in, whatever goal we're working towards, whatever challenge we're experiencing, if we're patient, persistent, and consistent, we will come through the other side better than we were before.
It's beautiful words. I mean, it resonates with me a ton. I love your comments on instant gratification. Parker and I talk about it a lot, that our generation, we're stuck using these phones all the time, and for better or for worse, we can get any answer we want. We can get food in 3 minutes. We can call a friend. You can do anything, and it is instant gratification right away. When was the last time we waited for something, worked hard for it, waited, were patient, knew it was not going to come easy? It's rare.
Well, Sam, I want to go on a quick riff on that.
Yeah.
The patient persistence and consistency, that is also something that the garden and nature teaches us. Because when you plant a seed, you have to be very patient, to be very persistent and consistent in taking care of that thing if you want to harvest the fruit or the veggie, metaphorical fruit, potentially real fruit. But when I'm in the garden, I recognize any of my problems are not that big a deal at all. Because life is still growing, and my life could be way harder than whatever menial task I'm getting upset about. by somebody made a bad comment on my YouTube channel. Someone said this is bullshit or whatever they said, and I'm getting upset about that. Then I go out in the garden, I see a hawk like scoop up a chipmunk in front of me. I was like, wow, that dude just got eaten. And I'm complaining about a little YouTube comment. It's like when we return to nature, we return to our roots, we are instantly reconnected with the reality of life, which is life and death, which is rebirth, which is growth, which is slow and steady, but consistent and persistent. And if you live in a city and you see a tree growing through the sidewalk, it is given every reason to say, oh, this sucks. This isn't my natural environment. The odds are stacked against me. I have a square, a 4x4 square, and I have this giant tree coming out of because its roots are going to find a way. The tree's going to find a way. It's moving our telephone poles. Like, it's finding a way. So if we can return to our roots, get back outside, it really puts things in perspective and makes life a whole heck of a lot more enjoyable.
I can't top that. Ending on that. I mean, beautiful metaphor. I absolutely love it. I think we can learn so much from nature, from our food, from the world around us if we just took a minute to breathe through our nose, look around us, and realize, to your point, it takes a little patience, takes a little persistence, takes some consistency. We will get to where we are meant to be, but enjoy that ride, enjoy that moment, because who knows? A hawk might scoop you up and take you out of this damn world. So enjoy every day, be grateful. Rob, I truly appreciate you taking the time to educate myself and Elevation Nation on all the exciting ins and outs of nutrition, holistic health, agriculture, life in general. You have a ton of life lessons that you've learned through your years and through travel that I think really inspired me. And, you know, on behalf of Parker and myself, we want to welcome you to the Elevation Nation, our family of people who are just consistently each and every day trying to better their lives of themselves and people around them. So it's a true honor and a blessing to have you with us tonight, man. And I know Elevation Nation is grateful.
Well, man, I appreciate you having me. I appreciate the work that you're doing. Like I said, I've had my own podcast for about 2 years, and I just recently put on pause because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of commitment. So, you know, kudos to you for committing this, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak here and, you know, share, like you said, my life experiences, because I'm not a master by any means, but I've learned a few things that, you know, I feel comfortable sharing with other people. And, you know, at the end of the day, life isn't all butterflies and rainbows, like we're saying when you look at nature, but if we can enjoy the ride and take that long perspective and just do the little things, like you said, get a little bit better every day. It doesn't have to be these leaps and bounds, just 1% better. 1% better every single day. You're 37 times better at the end of a year because that compounds. It's not like you're, you know, 365% better. You're 37 times better, which I don't know what percentage that is, but it's a giant percentage. So, you know, final message to people is just keep going. Whatever you're going through now, just keep going and just keep showing up, keep being you. If you have a tough day, you have a tough day. The next day will probably be better. So I appreciate you having me, man. I really do.
Such a pleasure. Elevation Nation, keep on elevating. Till next week. Peace. Yo, that was great.
Thanks,
Thank
dude.
you, Rob. That was so good, man. You are wonderful. I'm like so inspired and so informed. Again, like I'm super into all this stuff. So thank you for teaching me a thing or two.
Yeah, man. And like I said, I really appreciate you, you know, doing this. And like even you saying that you're going to make like a bunch of reels out of this. Like I know that takes time and effort. So I appreciate the time and effort you're putting into that. I recognize how challenging that is to do that with a job you're working. And so, dude, I thank you for doing it. Dude,
it is our pleasure. I will reach out with Parker. Do I have your cell phone, by the way?
No, but I'll give it to you.
Okay.
Let me know when you're ready.
I am ready.
617.
Okay.
827.
Yep.
2799.
Got it. Okay. I will text you right now. And then we'll probably release this in, I think, 2 weeks. Parker will spin it up, edit it. I'll make a bunch of reels for Instagram for it. And then we'll kind of go from there. We'll launch it on a Tuesday, and then throughout that week, I'll just promote a shit ton of stuff. One thing that would be cool, we have all our guests write down their mental motto on like a piece of paper. You can check our Instagram to see what it looks like and just like smile and hold it with the picture. And we're making like a wall of fame on our website,
cool.
which is sweet. Yeah. So, it's looking really cool. This was awesome. And if Parker and I can help you in any way, Rob, like seriously, let us know. I'm excited to follow your journey. And again, we're starting to put together some different aspects of Elevation Nation. One of the things we're trying to do is we just like all the people we've met, and we feel like the people that we've had on will like each other. So one of the things we're working on is trying to start like just a community where folks can, if they need something, reach out to somebody. If someone needs an expert in X, Y, or Z, bringing them together, maybe doing events around the East Coast. So that's to come. Hopefully that's on our next year plan, but would love to have you involved in that as well.
Yeah, man. Any way I can support you guys, let me know. And definitely let me know when these are going out, and just give me a heads up in terms of the reels, because I know it's best like to do the collaborate thing like ASAP. So if you know